Minimum intelligence required to retire early. What a controversial title for a video. Does it take a minimum amount of intelligence to be a retire early lifestyle? Well, yes and no. When I was younger, I earnestly wanted to know, what does it take to be a wealthy person? And I started going to the library every day and reading and studying. And nowadays, we don't even have to go to the library. All we have to do is sit in our chair and all the information is there. I just watched a podcast yesterday that took an hour and 15 minutes to tell me 3 basic principles, which I'm going to give you later in the video, in order to get on to the retire early lifestyle as early as possible, earlier than most people. So when you come to an intersection and it's going to be a red light, do you think ahead and don't block the intersection? Not everybody does that, and when that happens and they get stuck blocking the intersection, then the people that are supposed to be taking their turn get pretty impatient and they started wiggling their way in. Now this time it worked out.
Well, no, we lost the light. It was green and
we had to wait another turn, but I'm just saying that this is what causes accidents. Look at people.
Now they're going.
This is all kinds of, this is chaos.
Oh my God.
So, do you think ahead like that at every time, in everything that you do, or not everything?
You're going too.
Does it take a minimum amount of intelligence to be a retire early lifestyle? Just a normal amount of intelligence is all it takes, which is to say that you read, you listen, and you comprehend. And what was it? A success is 90% perspiration and 10% inspiration. And I would say that really that's misleading, because we need to work smart, not hard. And that saying was an old saying back in the day to get people to put up with 60-hour work weeks for 30, 40 years. You didn't know that, did you? But what it really takes is to devote time to getting to know yourself and what is important to you. And a lot of times we just have to go through something in order to figure that out. Flexibility is like the #1 thing on the list. Is you have to stay flexible in your thinking so that you can execute on different ideas, even in a small way, to test the waters to see what direction makes the most sense for you. If you really want to jump off the treadmill ASAP, what you would do is you would reduce, #1, your expenses to a core. The purpose of that is so as to make it much easier to get that investment income or business income or passive, semi-passive income. In other words, if your nut is $7,000 a month, it's going to be a lot more work and more complicated to try to cover that, because you're thinking that that's what you have to do right out the gate. Whereas if you were to cut down to your core nut monthly expense of, say, $2,000 a month, it'd be way easier and quicker to reach that, so that you can drop down to maybe part-time work, or perhaps even, get to a situation where you're able to analyze other opportunities and then start adding to your passive income or your investment income or your business income. So you can do it in steps instead of trying to do it all at once by giving into the delayed gratification plan. So that's an amazing principle right there, and it's the exact principle that we used. #2 was that, when your expenses are cut down, when your expenses are much, much lower, and you were able to, say, reach, your semi-passive income with much lower resources, and then just reassess at that point. And so at that point, when you're able to add more income sources, because you have cut your expenses, you're able to save a lot more than you were before. Save and invest a lot more. That was #2. That was the key. It's not rocket science, but it's a core principle. And a lot of times young people don't think about it. They just think about the delayed gratification plan, because they don't see a light at the end of the tunnel. But with these 3 principles, you can see a light at the end of the tunnel, and it actually makes you feel like you're actually achieving results, a lot sooner and quicker, and because you are. And then #3 is All right, so if you lower your expenses, you won't have to come up with as much passive income, and you can get off the treadmill faster. No brainer. Once you're off the treadmill, you can look for other ways to increase your passive income and investments. So you're doing that while you're already off the treadmill. That's the key there. And if you keep your expenses lower, you will be able to invest more and be freer sooner. What's going to happen to you if you don't stop working hard? Most people that make 6 figures a year are afraid. They're unwilling. We'll use fear within the context of not wanting to lose an income because they're not wanting to lower their standards, and they're not wanting to live on less money. That's a legitimate concern. Now, there are solutions to that. What we're going to focus on is the other side of this, is that if you don't stop working hard, because people say, but if I stop working hard, then I won't be able to have the same lifestyle. But if I do stop working hard, then I'm going to have to adjust my lifestyle and I'll be uncomfortable. That is an assumption. It's an assumption that is born within the context of the lifestyle that you have prescribed for yourself because all you do is work hard. It's a vicious cycle where, because you're working hard, the most precious asset is time. And people will say this on social media, well, time is worth more than money, but people say it as a cliche and they just keep going as if they don't really believe it, because deep down inside they're thinking, yes, but I can't take a measure of time to the utility company and pay the bill with it. But that's a myopic way of looking at things. It's kind of short-sighted, and I'm saying that we trap ourselves in a mental way of thinking that keeps us on a treadmill, and what will happen is that you will end up staying on the treadmill. But not only that, you will be robbing yourself of future time because of what extended stays on that treadmill will do to you mentally and physically. Now, you probably didn't want to hear that, or you probably already know that, but here's the silver lining in all that. You have to do an analytical on your lifestyle. Once you start doing an analytical and you start realizing how much of your life is spent on feeding certain kinds of activities that keep you entangled and enslaved, like, for example, being in debt. For example, always, if you're in a kind of business where you have to impress clients, and you always have to have a brand new car, name brand suits and clothing, and go out to expensive lunches, and we tell ourselves that we enjoy that, and we do enjoy it, but enjoying something at the expense of something else is not a sustainable kind of enjoyment. So what we want to do is have a sustainable enjoyment, and the example of that would be the difference between people that ask questions on social media, such as, should they buy a home, should they rent, should they not buy a home, should they stop commuting, should they buy a home closer to work. None of those questions would be necessary if we had made a commitment already to living the retire early lifestyle in the here and now. The focus has to be on the goal. You have to get out of that delayed gratification thinking, and you have to come into the here and now and make choices and decisions that make sense for you today. And remember, any decision that is made based on fear or just based on money alone, which is what this conversation is about, it's why people work hard for the money alone. Wisdom dictates that decisions made on money alone are not usually a good decision, meaning there are other things to consider. Not that money isn't important, but that everything needs to be balanced against the consideration that you're having at the moment. And so what will happen to you if you don't stop working hard is that you will miss your retire early lifestyle, and you will put it off for a date that's further away and further away. You don't know how many days you have on this earth. It's not just days, it's quality days. I mean, I'm in fairly good shape, being in an endemic area, It's as difficult as that is, but still there are things I don't do that I used to do when I was 30. You know, to be clear about it. And when I'm 70 and 80, there are going to be things that I won't be doing that I could do when I was 40, you know, or 50. So that's what I'm talking about here. It's quality days. All right, so I hope you got something out of that. Thanks for coming to the channel, and have a wonderful day.